Natasha, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. So, we met online. I
Yes.
don't know. I think it's been like maybe a year. I think it's longer, actually, probably a couple of
So,
years.
yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, you have this really incredible Slack community, which I think yours is really the first one that I've ever been on in that capacity because we use Slack as an agency with our team and
Mhm.
clients. But
Yeah,
I love it. And I know that I have not been able to attend too many of the
yeah,
sessions that you guys have. But
yeah.
this week I was on one that was really incredible. So I love that you do
Okay.
that. And
Yeah,
it's great that you connected and were like, hey, can I come on and let's chat? So
yeah,
I'm excited to dive into this with you because first of all, there's some things that I didn't know about you until recently. So I'm super glad you're here. So thank you. Yeah. So I want to start with this because, and I know you've heard some of the episodes, but I love to ask everyone that comes on if they have a secret that they could share about building a personal brand that most people, most experts, most coaches, gurus, all the people, they're not really talking about. What would yours be?
I think I've worked in marketing almost my entire career, and I think we overthink it. You as you is unique. You don't need to be different. You don't need to be anything. There's only one you, be you. You're already. That's enough. You don't need a gimmick or some sort of fake something or a cowboy
Right.
hat. If you're into
For
cowboy hats, do it. Yeah, just be yourself. That's unique right there. No more thinking required.
100%. I love that. Thank you. I feel
Oh my
like
God. I
sometimes
just
I'm
think we
like the only one who's
overcomplicate it.
explaining those. Yeah. And with so much AI out there, it drives me nuts. I mean, I love AI.
Yeah.
That was what the call was this week with the
Yeah.
agencies group. But I mean, there's a line, right? So I see
It's
all
a
of these
tool.
people like cloning themselves and using that in their marketing, even
Yeah.
videos, like
Yeah.
for their real marketing, not even just for fun. So I love that
Mhm.
you say that. Okay. So I want to dig into something because I don't really think that enough people are actually talking about this, but there's something that you mentioned before you came on that you are a trauma informed business coach.
Yes.
And that really just struck out to me. And so I want you to tell us a little bit. Can you break down what that actually means, why it matters to us as entrepreneurs
Sure.
specifically, especially when we're thinking about marketing and building our business?
For sure. Really good example. So I grew up in a really messed up family situation. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. I had a bipolar parent. There was a lot of
Hmm.
religious craziness and all these sort of things. And so I grew up in an environment where the MO was just to keep the peace. Just like keep just don't make somebody angry. Don't provoke this parent. Don't say this to that parent because they're going to get mad and then they're going to ice you out. So you just learn how to kind of walk the line
Yeah.
and you become really good at just not rocking the boat, right? You just get really good. But then the problem with that is you learn that as a kid, as a teenager. So I lived in that household for let's say 20 years. But
Hmm.
then you grow up and for me, I love to share this story that on LinkedIn now, people are always reaching out to me. They're like, "Oh, I love your content and all that." But I'm like, what they don't know is until a year ago, I could not create content because of how I grew up. I would hire coaches to help me create content and I would have panic attacks.
Wow.
And I remember like 2 years ago, I hired someone and she was like the sixth package of whatever it was. And after the first session, she's, you can't do this. And she literally gave me a refund because you are
Wow.
so, and so was working with a therapist and I'm like, I have so much to say and I'm not shy. I'm not
Mhm.
anything, but I'm like, I could not, no matter what it was. And so I was working with this therapist and she's like, well, you've spent your whole life trying to keep the peace. You've spent
Mhm.
your whole life trying to avoid making people angry. And so when you create content, there's a very high possibility someone's not going to know what you're saying. Right. And I was really worried about the trolls or whatever it was. And I was really paranoid about somebody getting upset, offending somebody, provoking somebody in a bad way. And it wasn't until I was able to heal that wounding from how I grew up and realize,
Mhm.
look, people are welcome to get mad if they want to get mad. If someone's mean, I can delete the comment. I don't have to put up with it. I have something to say and what I have to say is valid and I'm allowed to have an opinion and I'm allowed to have people disagree with me. And just as other people are allowed to post stuff that I might not agree with, it's a free world. We're allowed to do that. And it wasn't until I actively healed that 44-year-old wound that I'd been carrying of like sit down, shut up kind of idea
Yeah.
that I was able to actually create, show up at all as a personal brand. And so that's what
Mhm.
trauma informed coaching is because I had spent so much money, like in my career, like Gina, I don't know if you can relate to this too, but I for sure have spent over 6 figures on like
Yep.
personal development, professional development, coaches, cohorts, communities, and none of it was able to move the needle for me that until I was able to kind of realize where my block was, right? Like my block was never skill or strategy or personality. Like I always have
Mhm.
something to say. And so that's what, yeah. So to answer your question, that's what trauma informed business coaching is this, okay, the block is probably not something strategic. Like
Right.
we all know what to do. If we're honest about it, the how is not the problem. Like we
Yep.
know what our next step is, even if it's not the perfect one, but we know what the next one should be, right? But why don't we do it? Well, we don't do it, and it's not something we're conscious of. It's something that we're like not conscious of. I would never have thought of that. I haven't
Yeah.
seen my dad in 25 years, like I don't ever think about him, but my body does. My body
Mhm.
remembers what like it learned
Yeah.
how to not piss anybody off, right? And so yeah, it's fascinating because it's like sort of, I mean, this is sort of a different question, but I think a lot of female founders and business owners or solopreneurs or whatever it is, we think like the whole term of self-sabotage. I
Mhm.
hate that term because what blocks us is not something we're conscious of in
Yeah.
most cases. It's something so unconscious. It's in your body, it's in your nervous system, it's in your wiring, it's in your software, and you don't know you're doing it,
Mhm.
right? And so it's trying to help. Like, I love working with female founders because I've been an entrepreneur my entire career. And it's like, I want to see female founders be like shinier and brighter and taking up way more space. And it's okay. Why? What did you learn? What did your body learn? What did your mind learn? Your spirit learn that you're not thinking about, but that's really the thing. Does that make sense? Know what I
Totally
mean?
makes sense. And as you're sharing all of this, I am just thinking about, the clients that I work with, especially the women that we work with inside of our
Mhm.
programs. And we're encouraging them, to get out more, to show up more. And most of them are in their 40s, 50s. I even have, oh my gosh, I even have a 92-year-old client right now. She's
Love
amazing.
that.
She is amazing. But here's the thing. Those older clients like Dorinda, and I've had another one, she was in her 80s.
Wow.
They're the fast ones to, for example, show up on camera. But
They don't
then
care.
yeah, they're over it. They're like, what do I
Like,
have to do? Yeah. But then
love.
there's women like us that are in our 40s and 50s, and we have so many patterns to break.
Yeah,
And I am even, I'll admit I'm one that sometimes have not gotten frustrated with someone, but I'm like, but I know that this could be so possible for you if this
totally.
happens. And you've just put this
Totally.
into such different perspective for me.
True. It's something else that we're not thinking about. I love to give this example of like, I have a friend with 1 million followers on TikTok, and she
Uh-huh.
makes zero money. I think she made $10,000 last year from brand deals. And because it's like she hates sales, she hates it. I remember she told me this story that she made this offer to sell a thing, and
Uh-huh.
she had 1,000 people reply. Okay. And because out of 1 million, she had like 1,000 people reply. And I remember I was like, oh my God, you're going to be fucking, that's cash right there. And she didn't
Yeah.
even reply to them. Like,
Oh my
didn't
gosh, you
even,
know how many people would,
I
like,
know. I
pay
know.
for it?
Let's say 80% were spam and not qualified, let's say. But let's say there was
Right.
20, like 80-20, right? Let's say that
Yeah.
there was 20% that were like valid leads and she didn't even reply to the DMs. I was like, you got to be kidding me because she has a major block around selling.
Mhm.
And I was like, you are like sitting on money. But
Right.
for her, it's not a skill issue. That could have been done by a VA, right?
Yeah.
A VA could fake as her, show up as her, do all the thing, do the back and forth. Here's the link, buy it. I think it was like a low ticket, whatever it was.
Mhm.
She wouldn't even have to do it. But just the idea of selling at all, for her, there's a huge trauma block there. The thing that, because this is where I noticed it, it's like most female founders are badass and strong and
Mhm.
brave, and we're going to go for it. And but then when we don't, it's not something conscious. Do you know what I mean? You know, like,
Yeah.
it's like you're looking at someone and you're like, my God, you're so talented. What are you doing? Why can't
Yeah.
you, whatever it is? And we don't know why we can't. We don't know. We want to. We really want to. We wouldn't have hired a coach if we didn't want to.
Right.
but there's something else, right? And it's not, it's that's the hardest part is it's like we don't, it's so unconscious that we
Right.
don't
And
even
it's
know.
not something that you can in right away
No, not at all.
either.
Not at all. Nobody would tell her that. She'd be like, because then we were talking, she's, "Oh, I'm busy at church and, my
Mhm.
son, it's his birthday and all my friend is sick." And her whole thing was like she was too busy. And I've known her for 15 years and I was like, "It's not true." It's not. And she just has a huge hang up around sales, like money being bad and all this trauma around money. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God. So yeah, but she would never tell you that. She would say, "I'm busy." But I'm like,
Right.
that's not true. Like all
Right.
you talk about is wanting to make money. And there's literally 1,000 DMs sitting in your TikTok. Like, and it just won't fit, And I'm like, but do you know what I mean? It's just so yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating because I've been an entrepreneur since I was like my entire career. I started working for
Mhm.
myself when I was like 12 and I just know for all the times that I've thrown money at like at stuff where it was like a course or a whatever or a
Right.
program
The
or
next
and
run. Yeah.
yeah, and I know it all and but I don't there's so much that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And I remember there was this one course, it was like $25,000 high ticket, whatever it was. And the first module, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, and I literally didn't even continue. Like after module one, I'm like, this is so not me.
Yeah.
And I just didn't finish it. And so, it's just that there's a trauma block there, and there's
Right.
something. So yeah, it's so fascinating to me, like how, so that healing. And I
Yeah.
think one of the misconceptions about trauma is like, they always, for me anyway, so I
Mhm.
remember working with this coach like years ago, this energy healer, because I was really like having a hard time. And she was like, "You grew up in a really traumatic situation. Like you grew up with a lot of trauma, like 20 years living in that kind of family situation, right?" And I was like, "No, like I was never abused, like physically abused. I was never a child soldier. I've never been sexually abused. I've never been in a fire and lost all my, you know what I mean? Like all these things we
Yeah.
think about, like these quote unquote like big T traumas. I've
Right.
never been to war, but it's the little traumas, like the repeating traumas, like there's that they're called small T traumas, but it's not less traumatic, like
Right.
coming out of a situation, I was 44, PTSD, like
Yeah.
serious PTSD. And like I think women, we negate that a lot. Like I had that in my newsletter this week. Like we negate where things hurt. Like we
Right.
talked about with your foot, I know for
Yeah.
me, like I had a torn hamstring tendon and I trained on it for 2 years. I could barely walk. And I'm like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" And then it, like, healed
Right.
wrong, and they're like, "Well, there's nothing we can do now because it's, like, all scar tissue," and so
Yeah.
my range of motion on my left side is if I walk or hike, I feel sore and, like anyway, stupid, right?
Yeah.
But I know I had, like, chronic pain for, like, 20 years, and finally I, like, got surgery, and I'm like, "Oh my god." Anyway, but it's
And
like
that,
I know, it's so bad. But
yeah.
I think women, we're so good at playing hurt. Women are so much tougher than men. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, we are so much tougher in every way. Like, we'll play hurt. We will play on like a broken toe and run on the
Yeah.
broken toe. And we're just like, okay, whatever. What am I making for dinner? And it's the same thing with trauma. Like, we have stuff that we experienced that
Mhm.
has jeopardized our ability to achieve our goals. And we won't like it's like to
Confront it.
accept that, yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was traumatic and changing that definition of trauma,
Right.
right? Because if we don't acknowledge, okay, something was wrong,
Mhm.
like growing up with that kind of parent situation, that was not a good situation. And if we don't, until we acknowledge that, oh yeah, it kind of sucked, blah, blah, like we can't, there's no openness to look at it. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like if we just
Yeah.
negate like the difficulty and so
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Well,
round.
it has like a snowball effect on everything else, relationships, your
Yeah,
business, your children, like how you
totally.
raise your children, all the things.
Totally.
Right.
100%.
So wow. That was so, so good. And I want to extend this conversation. We definitely have to have you come in and I would love for you to share with my client group. And I'm thinking they're mainly all women and they could really
Yeah,
use this.
we all
So
can. Me too. I
so
work on
let's
myself every day. Sometimes just
let's talk a little bit about on purpose projects
yes.
because
Okay.
yeah, so I love the way that you've built this and just the name of the business itself says a lot. So
Yeah.
I know you work with agencies, but tell me specifically, like on purpose projects, because I think just the name itself and knowing you. I don't know you super, super well, but I'm
Yeah.
getting to know you and I can see that alignment 100%.
Mhm.
So, tell me how this came about and,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of a funny story because 11 years ago, I was a management consultant in the nonprofit sector. And I had a client who was looking for help with his website. And I was like, yeah, sure, let me get a guy. And so I went to Upwork and I got a guy for $5 an hour from Bangladesh, like no idea what was going on. And so he came in and fixed the WordPress site. I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, so he fixed the website. And then my client was like, hey, could your guy take a look at this website? And I was like, sure. And so my guy went and looked at that website. And then it just sort of evolved. And then next thing you know, I was running this agency and
Mhm.
I literally have, and so now, like 11 years later, I run an e commerce agency and I've never built a website in my life. And we
How
do
funny.
really, it's so funny. People always think that's hilarious. And people who know me, they're like, you do what? Because I tried to, certain things, like I tried to set up a Bluetooth adapter in my car and I was like nearly in tears and I had to call my son and I'm like, can you do this? And he came out and he fixed it. And I'm like so low tech. People are like, what do you mean? You run this e-commerce development agency. And so that's that. And yeah, the on purpose projects came because I was a project manager, management consultant in the nonprofit sector. And I just kind of kept the name. And
Mhm.
so yeah, so it's an agency. We specialize in working. We do most of our work in partnership or white label with other female agency owners. Because most female founders or female agency owners, they don't have that tech person. They don't have that tech knife in the drawer. So we come in as that. We do the full stack dev, we do the e-com. And again, I have no idea how anybody on my team does what they do, but
You're like,
that
I just know that they do it and they do it.
I'm
And
like,
I'm
I don't know. I know. I really don't know. We'll deliver stuff. And I'm
that's
like,
so
damn,
awesome.
that's amazing. How did you do that? But the thing is I know how to build teams. I know how to
Right.
lead. I know how to, organize. But well, now I'm technically out of the agency because after my cancer treatment, I hired somebody and she
Yeah.
took over. But yeah, for 10 years, I was the lead project manager of a full stack web development agency. And,
Wow.
again, I don't code. I don't do any of it.
Yeah.
I know how to find really good people. So that's my secret. So
So you mentioned something in here that I was going to get to, but all right, you had breast cancer
yeah.
and you've called yourself a breast cancer butt kicker. And
Yes.
I love that energy. So I mean, and I have so many friends that also have had breast cancer.
Mhm.
And it's just to me, it's just remarkable that, everything that you go through. And also you're a mom of three as well. So with all of that happening in
Yeah.
your life, like share with all of the moms, just us
Yeah.
that are business owners and trying to make things
Yeah.
happen. How were you able to balance it all and to heal and to, still show up in the way that you do and be in your business too at the same time? All the things.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Yeah, it was crazy. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I was in September of 20 well, because there's a lot of women listening, I'll give the more nitty-gritty version, but so, yeah, in June of 2024, I found a lump on the right side. I could literally feel it. I was like, I could feel the nodule and stuff, and then
Mhm.
so I went for the mammogram. Mammogram came back actually negative. So my PSA is find out your breast tissue type because there's different types where things don't show. So my mammogram came back
Mhm.
negative, and I was like, no, I refuse to accept that. I went to see my doctor. She was like, you're too young. You have no family history. You have 3 kids. It's probably a something else. And I was like, okay, that's fantastic. But you know what? I still want to do the
Yeah.
ultrasound. I did the ultrasound. It came back inconclusive. And then so finally I'm like, I want a biopsy. I need to know because I could see it. It wasn't like, I know some women, they never know. And I'm like, no, I could literally, maybe that was the blessing. I could feel it and see it. And so I went for the biopsy and the doctor, while I'm lying there with the needle, stabbed into your boob, she was like, I'm not allowed to tell you that you have
Mm.
cancer because that's not my place, but I would just mentally prepare for the worst. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So then I remember it was like September 11th, like just, coincidentally, I got the call from the oncologist and she's, hey, I'm just scheduling you for chemo and surgery. And my GP hadn't called me yet. So I didn't know that I was diagnosed. And so
Mhm.
I was diagnosed with stage 2 aggressive breast cancer in September of 2024. And I was like having a panic attack because I was like, what am I going to do? I'm a one income household. I have 3 teenage
Mhm.
kids. I'm the breadwinner. At that point in the agency, I had 14 people working. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to keep this moving? Because this was like my only source of income. Right. And
Mm.
kids, I don't know, how old your kids are, Gina, but my kids are big. My 2 teenage boys, that's a lot of money just to feed them. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No.
My God. Yeah. It's like, I don't even look at a card. When you go to Costco, I'm just going to close my eyes because I'm like, I can't even handle how much this is going to cost. Anyway, doesn't matter. Side note for all the moms of teenage boys out there. So I was freaking out and I'm like, so the option of shutting it down was not an option. I'm like, I can't just fire all these people. And then I need the money too, because that's my income. Like, how am I
Right.
gonna? So I had a friend that I knew. She had been my client before. She was our web client for like 4 years. And I knew her. We'd stayed friends and she'd been laid off, but we'd stayed in touch. And I knew how she was like the best project manager I'd ever had as a client. And she knew my team. She knew what we did. She wasn't a technical project manager, but I knew her and I trusted her as 100%. So I called her up and I was like, hey, I don't know. She wasn't working at the time. And I'm like, look, can you get me through treatment? Can you just come in and cover me for the next 6, 7 months? Because like my oncologist told me like most people don't work through treatment. Like most people
Right.
just like rest and whatever. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know about you, but I rarely I really, if you're self-employed, you don't really take sick leave or anything like that, right? And I didn't
Yeah.
have an on offboarding plan or I didn't have anything. I had no exit strategy. I had no, what do they call it? Succession planning. Like I had
Right.
nothing ready. And so she said to me, she's like, sure. And she's okay. You know, my pitch is it's $5,000 a month because she's Canadian and she's not like a Philippine VA for $5 an hour. She's like a professional in Canada. And I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to come up with 5 grand, pay her, pay me, pay the team, pay the bills, pay my taxes and not work? Like,
Right.
that's a fantastic mathematical plan, right? I'm like, my God. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, but I had no choice. So she and I decided we're like, okay, yeah. And then so anyway, went to the bank. I got a loan and I'm like, look, I got a loan for 30 grand. I'm like, just to cover 6 months of payroll for her. If I come back and we're bankrupt, I will deal with it then. But I didn't know what to expect with treatment, right? I'm like, I don't know. Am I going to be on my ass for 6 months? I don't know. You see people going through
Yeah.
chemo and we're just all wasted. And I was like,
Right.
I
And
didn't know.
everyone's different. Everyone's body is different.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
know, right? And so, anyway, so it was 6 weeks before I was scheduled for surgery, and she was like, "Well, just to let you know, I've got a vacation planned. I'm gonna be gone for 3 of those 6 weeks." And I was like,
Oh.
"Fantastic," right? So anyway, so we kind of like has and then we did like this so anyway, so I had the mastectomy, the reconstruction, the whole thing, and we did a lot of training, like, while I was, like, high on pain medication and then on my ass from chemo, and so she definitely saw me a lot, like, stoned, and
Yeah.
so I always apologize to her. I'm like, "You probably had the worst onboarding of any PM of all time," because I was just in treatment, I was in cancer treatment. And anyway, so luckily for me, I every other week from chemo, I had 8 rounds of chemo and every other week I felt good enough to work. So I was just my lane was biz dev because she was running the ops, right? I was out of client work.
Mhm.
Wasn't working with the team anymore. So my goal was like when I could work was just to stay in the lane of like biz dev. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, no worries. So every other week I worked. Every other week I was on the couch, just like depressed and sad. So chemo finishes in like May of 2025, so like a year ago. I can't believe it's a
Mhm.
year ago. And I came back and I'm like, "Hey, I'm feeling better, like I'm done and whatever." I mean, there was a lot of collateral damage from chemo, like infections
Right.
and stuff, but I felt like good enough to come back to work. And she was like, "Well, if it's all the same to you, I've got this and I don't need you. So I would rather keep my job and we're doing great." And then in the May that I came back, we had our second biggest month that we'd ever had, ever in
Wow.
10 years. Yeah, and then that year, I paid myself over 100 grand. I always pay myself over 100 grand, but, like, I paid myself still over 100 grand out of my agency as
Mhm.
my draw, and the business was running without me, and it was yeah, I mean, like,
That's
on the
amazing.
family end, I'm glad I had 3 teenage kids because my oldest son did all the cooking, my middle son walked the dogs, like, my younger daughter did the dishwasher, you know what I mean? And then my
Yeah.
partner obviously was the one who, like, held the bucket and changed all my bandages and all that good stuff, but it's definitely for women, like, I don't believe I hate the idea of self-made. I hate the idea of being superwoman, do it all. Like, I hate that archetype for women. I think it's so damaging for women. It's a team effort. Like, it was
Yeah.
my team, it was my family. Like, my mom would come over and she'd take the dogs out when I couldn't walk them and she would come over and she would just do clean stuff, because I
Yeah.
couldn't get out of bed, and there was no hero. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just because people look at it and they're like, "Oh, that's such an inspiring story." I'm like, "Well, I didn't have a good team, the whole thing would have fallen apart. Like,
Right. True.
it's all the team effort. It's 100% the people around you. Because if it was just on me trying to keep all those plates spinning, it would have just crashed to the ground, like, absolutely crashed to
Yeah.
the ground.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just with this little foot surgery that I've had. So I can only imagine, but yeah, the team and the people around you that you're surrounded with, it's so important. So
Oh, yeah, it's everything.
thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
So, okay. So what's going on with you now? So what's like the big thing that you have going on? What's exciting you right now?
Well, when I came back from in May, and she was like, I don't need you. She gave me the if I see you on Slack, I'm gonna block you ultimatum. And I was like, okay. So I know we had a come to Jesus conversation, but I was the one who was in trouble. So she was like, I don't want to see you. So I haven't talked to a client in a year and a half, which I love. So or more. Yeah, since had the surgery. Anyway, so I love it. I haven't, people ask me all the time, they're like, what's it like not running the agency? I'm like, the best part is there's no more 2FA.
Yeah.
That's literally the highlight is like, I do not have to coordinate two-factor authentication with anybody anymore. Oh,
Oh my god, I
goodness.
literally get it. Yep.
I know. If you know how much time we spend all day doing that, like
Yeah.
trying to coordinate the client and the team. And oh my God, I'm just like,
Yep.
what a nightmare. Anyway, I don't have to track down login information anymore. I don't have to do anything like that. But so one of the things that I've been doing, because all my friends, all my peers, all my colleagues, we're all female founders. Everyone I know runs their own business. And behind the scenes, because of how I grew up, I had been constantly working on like trauma healing for 20 years, like therapy,
Mhm.
coaches, like treatment, yoga, mindfulness, psychology, polyvagal theory, like somatic healing. Like I'd done all the things just to
Oh,
be able to function in my own life, right? Like just to be able to keep my plate spinning in my own life with a business and a divorce and 3 kids and my youngest has special needs and like all these things, right? That I had to kind of keep moving and then obviously adding cancer on top of that. And people were like, well, and I would work with my colleagues and they would call me if they were stuck and they'd be like, there'd be lots of times they'd be crying and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this team member or, I meet other women who are going through cancer or like all these different situations of I have this client who's totally trying to drive scope creep at no charge. I'm like, no, this is what we're going to do. We work on boundaries and we were like, just as
yeah.
friends, right? Just like chatting as friends. And people would say to me, they're like, well, why don't you do that? Like, why don't you hang up a shingle for that as a coach? And I was like, I just had way too much going on. I'm like, I've got kids, I've got a career, I've got cancer. I'm like, that's just too many. I can't. But when I came back in May and I was mostly feeling better, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. So I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, but like when I get
Absolutely.
excited, I start getting a really dirty mouth. So I always do. And I always have to remind myself, don't swear, don't swear. I have a sticky on my computer, don't swear. And so it's like I came back and I was like, you know what, never mind. I'm gonna go for it. I'm just gonna hang up this shingle. And that's the trauma informed coaching now. Is so now I run the agency, oversee the agency. I meet with my manager twice a week. And then we just keep updated on Slack throughout the day. But I don't work with clients. I usually have no idea what's going on. She's handling all the
Mhm.
billing. She's got an assistant. We've got the book, like she's got her whole thing over
Yeah.
there. I do the biz dev because I like that part. And again, most of it is through people that I know and communities I'm in. And so it needs me, that personal brand piece, which I love. But then outside of that, I'm really working on I create a piece of content every day on LinkedIn about female foundership and mindset and healing. And just, I love being like, I'm trying to be, my goal with creating content is to be like an instigator, to be
Yeah.
like, look, because this is something that as a culture, mental health is very taboo for a lot of
Mhm.
people, which I don't understand at all. Because if you hurt your foot or you hurt your head, it's the same to me.
Right.
Mental health is almost more important than physical health because one drives the other. Anyway, and talking about that, talking about trauma, talking about healing, talking about blocks, having these conversations that maybe isn't really as common. It's very common to talk about sales problems or a funnel problem or like, pricing or whatever. But I'm like, but there's more. Like there's
Yeah.
so much more that we don't really talk about. So yeah, so I'm like started a Slack community to kind of have these conversations and separate from the one where you and I met. I've got a newsletter. I'm creating content every day. I've got some outside of all that about courses on the team building, like how I was able to pull that off, and but yeah, so really like now it's like I've been a female founder, been a female agency for about 10, 11 years. Now I feel like what I really want to do now is contribute to like my colleagues and like the women that like I love and I know them like in a very different way and
Mhm.
help show up bigger and brighter and shinier yeah,
That's
just coming at from a completely different perspective, right? So
yeah. It's a totally different perspective, but it's from your own experience too. And that's what makes
totally.
it
Yeah.
more powerful. And that's
Yeah.
a huge takeaway for people that are listening. because people feel like they're like stuck in this one lane because maybe they've been doing this for so long and they forget that there's so much more to them human being that many times we're like putting it to the side because we don't think it's important enough. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're passionate about it, that's,
Mhm.
kind of for me, like I've had my agency now for almost 17 years. And it really wasn't until about 5 years ago that I started to, as I was building my team, to now also work more exclusively in small groups with women entrepreneurs because I'm so passionate about sharing my experience and what's worked, what hasn't worked, and how
Yeah.
I felt like I also was hiding as a kid, and I was
Yeah.
very intimidated, and even though I was not an introvert. At times, I actually think that I was, and the reasons why. And so, yeah, everything that you're talking about, I can completely align with. And it's so
Yeah.
beautiful what you're doing. Where can my audience find you if they are a woman that, feels aligned to everything that you're saying and would absolutely love to connect with you, what would be the best way? And we're going to share all,
Yeah,
all the
absolutely.
links, all the things, but
All the
what,
things. Yeah.
yeah.
I'd say just go over to LinkedIn. That's kind of my home base where I create like every 5, 6 days a week, I share a piece of
Hmm.
content in different forms of videos or whatever it is, like just different mediums to share. And then from there, like I have a newsletter I send out every week, which is just like highlights of different things and just a way to stay in touch. And but yeah, in the links in the show notes, like we can put all the links. I know I'd love to talk to you because it's like I just want to give women permission that because one of the things I think, Gina, and I don't know if you can relate to this too, but like I remember there was like last year or actually a few different times that I was trying to read this book and it was all about how
Hmm.
female founders don't win because of quote unquote like self-sabotage. And I know I've said this already, but I literally couldn't even read the book. I was just like furious because I think a lot of women think that they think if I'm not achieving my goals, there's something wrong with me. I'm not like
Hmm.
her, or I don't
Yeah.
have that skill, or I'm too scared, and they think there's something wrong with them. And that is one of the things I just want to change the conversation because it's not true. Something happened. It's like that question, something like about, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, what happened to you
Right.
is more the question, like to your point about being shy or not showing up or not taking up space. Like that was a huge thing for me. And now I have posters all around my house that says it's safe to take up more space. And I have to like retrain that. And I just want women, like the biggest takeaway, I guess, from this call is, if you're not achieving your goals, it's probably not your fault. Like, there's
Right.
something else. Like, there's something there because women we work hard. We like do everything we can to get it done. And if we're
Mm.
still not getting it done, despite all our best effort, okay, we need to take another look at it from a different perspective,
Right.
right? And there's probably something else. There's probably another reason why you're like running up like that,
Yeah.
the fly against the window, right? So, and that's the story of my life is every time I've
Yeah.
sat down, looked at something, why am I stuck here? I remember that, I don't know if I have time to share another story, but I remember when my ops manager, she was taking over and I started waking up just being livid. I was just mad about everything that she was doing. And I didn't express it to her because I knew that would not be smart. But I remember she made a mistake. I was just constantly furious at her. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why? And I saw, and again, I was always respectful to her. I never let that out. But like,
Yeah.
I was always mad. And I sat down and I was like journaling with my friend Claude. And I was like, what's up? What am I doing? And we kind of quote unquote talked through it. And he helped me sort of look at different perspectives. And I missed my team. I was mad that she
Mhm.
was now taken over. These people I'd worked with
Oh,
for a decade. My team was now her team. And for 10 years, I had worked alongside these people and it was like my people. And now they were
yeah.
her people. And I was sad and lonely and angry and I missed them. But I had
Mhm.
no place now going back in that I didn't want to undermine her. And I didn't honestly want to run the agency anymore. So it wasn't like I wanted the job back. But I just all
Right.
of a sudden, I'm like, I feel so lonely. And then, so it was kind of like, okay, getting to the root cause. Okay, it wasn't, if I'd taken an anger management class, that would not have helped me. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? If I took a course on delegation and leadership training and like
Mhm.
emotional management and communication skills, no, none of that was the problem. The
Yeah.
problem was I was really, really lonely, And it was like, okay, how do I fix that loneliness? Okay, I registered for a dance class.
Mhm.
I got involved. I started going to community events where I could do networking and meet new people. Do you know what I mean? The problem was loneliness. The problem was not communication skills. Or do you know what I mean? Sometimes we're really trying to fix the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And
It was too, yeah.
exactly. But sometimes we'll do that. We'll be like, I'm mad. And it's okay. Let's work on your communication skills. How do you express your frustration? Or never the thing. She and I have never had a communication problem. But I think we don't ask that. We don't take it like a business coaches. They don't take it down. Okay, wait a second. What do you really like? Why are you mad at her? And we do like
Mhm.
the layer, then you take it down. You're like, I feel lonely and sad because my team is, I miss them, you know? So, okay, that's the problem we're solving. You feel lonely,
Right.
right? And now we solved the lonely problem. And then the communication problem with her, the anger at her just went away because all of a sudden I had other people around and I didn't feel lonely anymore.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But if I tried to solve the
And when
problem
you
with
say it out loud, it makes so much sense. But in the
yeah,
moment, yeah, it's not something that you would even really
mhm.
consider.
Because yeah, if I tried to solve the problem of I am mad at my operations manager, well, that was never the problem,
Mhm.
right? The problem wasn't I thought she was doing a bad job. The problem was something totally different. And so when I solved the real problem, like the superficial problem or the referred pain, quote unquote, right? You and I both can relate to that.
Yeah.
It went away, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating because I could have thrown 5 figures at my like leadership skills. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm going to say, but it's like, if that was not the thing, I'm a good leader. I know I am. But yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. So,
Loved this conversation so much.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having me.
Come on, I feel like I don't know. I've just had this whole experience. It's been so
Oh,
good. Such a pleasure
I'm
to have
so
you.
happy. Thank you so much for all
Yeah.
your beautiful questions.
Yeah. So everyone pay attention to the show notes. Please connect with Natasha. She is a beautiful human being. And again, thank you so much.
My
All right.
pleasure. Thank you so much, Gina.
Hey guys, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
That was so